The human mechanic thought nothing of it. A dragon veteran's scales cracked, armor dented, eyes carrying centuries of war stood silently in the aisle. So he rose from his first-class seat and offered it without hesitation. The dragon froze. No tribute, no fear, no demand, just respect. Something dragons hadn't been shown in generations. But what happened next rippled far beyond that starship cabin. Ancient protocols were triggered. Honor codes long forgotten were awakened. And the gesture of one human quiet, humble, unrecorded would ignite a storm across the galaxies. Because the veteran dragon didn't just accept the seat. He made a declaration so powerful. It changed how the galaxy saw humanity forever. Unexpected passenger Marcus Chen had never felt more out of place in his entire life. The boarding tunnel of the Stellar Empress gleamed with polished chrome and soft amber lighting that seemed to whisper luxury with every step. His boots, still dusty from the cargo docks of Terminus Station, left faint prints on the pristine floor. He clutched his boarding pass like a winning lottery ticket, which in a way it was. 3 months of grueling negotiations with the Andronian Trade Consortium had finally paid off. They had not only signed the contract, but had thrown in a first-class ticket home as a bonus. Marcus figured it was the least they could do after making him wait in their reception hall for 6 hours on his first visit. The first-class cabin smelled like something expensive that Marcus could not quite identify. Maybe imported flowers from one of those garden worlds he had heard about but never visited. The seats were not really seats at all, but rather personal pods with enough space to sleep comfortably. Each one had its own entertainment system, adjustable lighting, and what looked like real wood paneling. Marcus tossed his worn travel bag into the overhead compartment and stood there for a moment, just taking it all in. He had spent most of his adult life hauling cargo across the outer sectors, sleeping in cramped quarters and eating reconstituted protein bars. This was a different universe entirely. He was about to settle into his pod when he heard the commotion. The sound came from the economy section, filtering through the divider that separated the classes. Voices rose in frustration, one particularly sharp and demanding. Marcus leaned toward the aisle, curiosity getting the better of him. A flight attendant hurried past, her expression tight with professional stress. Behind her, Marcus caught a glimpse of what was causing the disturbance. The passenger was Valkyrie, one of the insectoid species from the Outer Rim territories. Marcus recognized the distinctive chitinous plates that covered their bodies, the forearms that moved with precise, calculated gestures, and the compound eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. This particular Valkyrie was old, very old. His exoskeleton had faded from what must have once been a vibrant green to a dull gray-brown, and several plates showed cracks and repairs from years of wear. He stood hunched in the narrow aisle of economy class, his body too tall and too wide for the cramped space designed primarily for human proportions. Marcus moved closer to the divider, watching as 2 human passengers on either side of the Valkyrie S, assigned seat, glared up at him with undisguised hostility. The woman on the left had her arms crossed tightly over her chest. The man on the right had already put his bag on the middle seat, a clear signal that he had no intention of sharing space. "Sir, you need to remain in your assigned seat," the flight attendant was saying, her voice strained. "We cannot have passengers blocking the aisle." "I am attempting to comply," the Valkyrie replied. His voice had a clicking, mechanical quality that came from the way his species produced speech. "However, your seating arrangements were not designed with my physiology in mind. I will do my best to minimize disruption." The woman on the left spoke up, her voice dripping with disdain. "This is absolutely unacceptable. I paid for a full seat, not half of one. Why should I have to deal with this?" "Ma'am, all passengers have the right to travel," the attendant began, but the woman cut her off. "I don't care about rights. Look at him. Those things give me the creeps. Can't you move me to a different row?" The Valkyrie said nothing. His compound eyes fixed straight ahead, his mandibles clenched tight. Marcus saw the slight tremor in his upper right arm, the only sign of emotion in an otherwise stoic stance. He noticed something else too. Pinned to the Velkari's travel vest were a series of service markers, military decorations from the bitter conflicts. Those wars had ended nearly 30 years ago, back when humanity was still finding its place among the established galactic powers. The Velkari had been on the opposing side, part of the coalition that had initially resisted human expansion. But wars ended, and soldiers on both sides had simply been following orders. Marcus thought about his own grandfather, who had served in the merchant marine during those same conflicts. Grandpa Chen used to say that you could measure a civilization not by how it treated its heroes, but by how it treated its veterans after the parades ended. This old soldier was being treated like an inconvenience, like something to be shuffled aside and forgotten. Something in Marcus's chest tightened. He looked down at his own boarding pass, at the first-class seat number printed in elegant script. Then he looked back at the Valkyrie, still standing in that narrow aisle, trying to make himself smaller. Trying to disappear. Marcus made his decision. He walked through the divider into economy class, drawing stares from other passengers. The flight attendant turned to him, confusion crossing her face. "Excuse me," Marcus said clearly. "I have a first-class seat, Pod 7. I would like to offer it to this passenger." He gestured toward the Valkyrie. The cabin went silent. Every eye turned toward Marcus. The Valkyrie's compound eyes swiveled to focus on him, reflecting surprise in their multifaceted depths. "Sir, that is very generous," the attendant said slowly. "But passengers are not obligated to. I am not obligated. I am offering. Is there any regulation that prevents a voluntary seat exchange?" The attendant hesitated, clearly consulting her training. "Oh, no. If both passengers agree to the exchange, it is technically permitted." Marcus turned to face the Valkyrie directly. "Sir, would you like to move to first class? Those pods have a lot more room, and honestly, they are way more comfortable than anything back here." The Valkyrie studied Marcus for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that suggested he was choosing his words with great care. "I cannot accept charity from strangers, human. It would not be appropriate." "It is not charity," Marcus replied. "It is just common sense." "You are what, 7 feet tall?" "These seats were designed for people my size. The first-class pods have adjustable dimensions. You will actually fit. Plus, I have spent the last 3 months sleeping on a cargo hauler bunk. Trust me, economy class on this ship is an upgrade for me." Marcus extended his hand, a human gesture he knew might not translate perfectly. "Name is Marcus Chen. I haul freight for a living. Mostly raw materials and manufactured goods between the inner and outer sectors." The Valkyrie looked at Marcus's hand. Slowly, carefully, he reached out with his primary right arm and clasped it. His grip was surprisingly gentle despite the hardness of his exoskeleton. "I am Jirak of the Greenspire Hive. I am retired from military service." "Well, Sharak, let me help you get settled upstairs. The lunch service should start soon, and I hear they actually have real food up there, not the replicated stuff." As they made their way toward first class, Marcus heard the whispers starting behind them. The woman who had complained loudest muttered something about species traders. A businessman in expensive suit shook his head in obvious disapproval. But Marcus also noticed a young human couple smiling at him, and an elderly Andronian passenger nodding with what seemed like respect. The flight attendant helped Iraq settle into the spacious first-class pod. For the first time since boarding, the old Valkyrie's body relaxed. His wings, which had been pressed painfully against his back, unfurled slightly in the extra space. His forearms found comfortable positions on the armrests, designed to accommodate multiple limb configurations. "This is far more than I expected," Chirac said quietly. "You do not need to do this." Marcus shrugged as he headed back toward economy. "My grandfather always said that how we treat people says more about us than it does about them. Besides, you served your people during the conflicts. That counts for something, regardless of which side anyone was on." As Marcus squeezed into the middle seat Iraq had vacated, still warm from the Valkyrie's body heat, He pulled out his data tablet and tried to get comfortable. The seat was cramped. The passenger next to him was already snoring loudly, and he could feel the vibration of the engines through the thin wall. Padding got, but when Marcus glanced toward the first class section and saw Girak looking out the viewport at the stars with something that looked like peace in his posture, Marcus smiled. Yeah, economy class was uncomfortable. But somehow he felt like he had made the right choice. Sometimes the most valuable things could not be measured in credits or comfort. Sometimes they were measured in simple human decency and the unexpected connections that could grow from a single act of kindness. Crisis in the Void Marcus was 3 chapters into a mediocre space thriller when the shadow fell across his tablet. He looked up to find Girak standing in the aisle, holding 2 crystal glasses filled with amber liquid. The old Valkyrie moved with careful precision, his forearms balancing himself and the drinks as the ship hummed through faster than light travel. The cabin steward insisted I accept these, Girak said, his clicking voice carrying a note of uncertainty. It appears to be some form of alcoholic beverage. Among my people, it is considered improper to consume such things alone. Would you share this with me? Marcus looked at the expensive crystal, at the liquid that probably cost more than his weekly food budget. Girak, that looks like premium Centaurian whiskey. Are you sure you want to waste it on me? After what you did, it would be my honor. Girak gestured with his secondary left arm toward the empty seat beside Marcus. The previous occupant had moved 3 rows back, muttering about not sitting near bug lovers. Marcus accepted 1 glass. The whiskey was smooth, warming his throat without burning. So where are you headed? The barrier station, Girak replied, settling carefully into the seat. There is a memorial ceremony for my old tactical unit. I am the last surviving member. It seemed important to attend, to remember them properly. I am sorry. That must be hard, being the last one. Girak's mandibles moved in. What Marcus had learned was roughly equivalent to a sad smile. We fought in the Battle of Kelvin's Gate. We were told it was necessary, that we were defending our territory against human expansion. We believed what our leaders told us until we learned the truth. By then, many had already died. Marcus thought about his grandfather's stories, about the battles fought on both sides by people who were just following orders. My grandfather served during those wars. He was with the Merchant Marine, keeping supply lines open. He used to say the real enemy was never the soldiers on the other side. It was the people making decisions far from the fighting. Your grandfather was wise. Girak raised his glass. Let us honor those who served and survived to see through the lies. They drank in companionable silence. Then Marcus's curiosity got the better of him. What did you do after the military? I mean, after everything ended? Girak's compound eyes dimmed slightly. I survived. The Valkyrie territories were absorbed into the Greater Federation. Our military pensions were reduced to almost nothing. I do consulting work when I can find it, but most companies prefer younger consultants. Mostly, I am simply old and in the way. What kind of consulting? I was a navigation strategist. I designed routing protocols for fleet movements, optimized faster-than-light travel paths through dangerous sectors. During the wars, keeping ships safe while moving quickly was essential. But those skills do not translate well to peacetime commerce. Marcus sat up straighter. Wait, you design navigation systems? I work with those every day. The newer ships have automated systems, but they fail constantly in the outer sectors. We still have to do manual overrides and plot backup courses. It is like the people designing these systems never actually use them in difficult conditions. For the first time, Girak's posture showed genuine interest. The newer civilian systems prioritize cost efficiency over reliability. They assume optimal conditions and fail to account for spatial anomalies, stellar drift, or emergency situations. It is poor design philosophy. Exactly. Marcus leaned forward. Last year, I was hauling titanium ore through the Epsilon sector when my navigation computer just quit. The automated system kept insisting we were on course, but I could see we were drifting toward a debris field. I had to shut everything down and plot a manual course using backup sensors. Shirak's forearms gestured with animation. The backup sensor integration protocols are notoriously unreliable. How did you compensate for the calibration drift? They dove deep into technical conversation, trading stories about navigation failures and creative solutions. Marcus described the time he had to use a damaged long-range scanner and star position calculations to find his way back to a shipping lane. Girak explained how he had once guided an entire fleet through an unstable wormhole using nothing but gravitational sensors and mathematical projections. Other passengers began listening. A young woman named Sarah, who had been reading nearby, moved closer. "Excuse me, but did you say you guided ships through an unstable wormhole? That should not be possible. The gravitational shear alone would tear apart any vessel." Girak turned to her. "It should not be possible. You are correct. But when the alternative is being destroyed by enemy fire, you find ways to accomplish the impossible." Sarah's eyes widened. "I am studying astrophysics at New Terra University. We have entire courses on why wormhole navigation is theoretically impossible without massive computational support." "Your courses are taught by people who have never had to attempt it," Girak said simply. "Theory is useful, but practical application often reveals possibilities that pure mathematics cannot predict." They talked for hours. Sarah asked questions. Girak answered with patient detail. Marcus added practical examples from his cargo hauling experience. A few other passengers drifted over, drawn by the conversation. An older mechanic named James, a young pilot in training named Keiko. Even the businessman in the expensive suit started listening, though he pretended to be reading his tablet. The flight attendant brought dinner carts through. She paused, looking at the small crowd that had formed around Marcus and Girak. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her voice uncertain. "Everything is perfect," Sarah said enthusiastically. "We are getting a better education than 3 semesters of advanced navigation theory." As the group dispersed to eat dinner, a man pushed through from first class. He was Talaxian, a reptilian species known for their business acumen and general arrogance. His scales were polished to a gleaming silver, and his clothing spoke of significant wealth. Marcus recognized him from earlier, one of the passengers who had been seated near the first-class pod Marcus had given up. "This is pathetic," the Talaxian said, his voice dripping with contempt. "A human playing student to a washed-up HFY war criminal. Do you have any idea what his kind did during the conflicts? The colonies they destroyed? The ships they attacked?" Marcus stood slowly. He was not a large man, but he had learned long ago that confidence mattered more than size. "I know exactly what happened during the conflicts. Both sides committed terrible acts. But that was 3 decades ago. And Girak here is trying to move forward. You are the one stuck in the past. How dare you speak to me that way? Do you know who I am?" "No, and I do not particularly care," Marcus said evenly. "What I do know is that you are being disrespectful to someone who has done nothing to you. So why don't you head back to first class and let us continue our conversation in peace?" The Talaxian scales flushed darker with anger. "You will regret this, human. People like you, fraternizing with species like him, you are what is wrong with the Federation. You weaken us all." Before Marcus could respond, the ship lurched violently. Passengers screamed as the artificial gravity flickered. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the cabin. The pleasant hum of the engines changed to a grinding, metallic shriek that made Marcus's teeth ache. The intercom crackled to life. Captain Rivera's voice, usually calm and professional, carried clear notes of panic. "All passengers, this is an emergency. Our primary navigation system has experienced catastrophic failure. Secondary systems are not responding. We are currently traveling at faster than light speeds with no control over our heading. All crew members report to emergency stations immediately." The cabin erupted into chaos. Passengers shouted questions. Children cried. The flight attendants tried to maintain order, but fear rippled through the crowd like a physical wave. Marcus looked at Shirak. The old Valkyries' compound eyes were fixed on the viewport, where the distorted streaks of faster-than-light travel were visible. This is not a simple malfunction, Shirak said quietly. The primary and secondary systems should never fail simultaneously. They operate on completely independent networks. Could it be sabotage? Marcus asked. Possibly. Or catastrophic design failure. Either way, if we do not regain navigational control soon, we will emerge from faster-than-light travel inside a stellar object or collide with spatial debris at relativistic speeds. Sarah, who had been listening, went pale. How long do we have? Girak's mandibles clicked in thought. At our current speed, perhaps 2 hours before we reach the end of this programmed jump sequence. When we drop back to normal space, if we are not on a safe trajectory, we will have only seconds to correct course. Marcus made a decision. We need to get to the bridge. Captain Rivera needs to know there are people on this ship who might be able to help. They will never allow passengers into the command center during an emergency, Shirak said. Then we better be very convincing. Marcus was already moving toward the forward section, Shirak following behind him. They found the bridge access corridor blocked by 2 security officers, both human, both looking extremely stressed. No passengers beyond this point, the larger one said. Return to your seats immediately. I need to speak with Captain Rivera, Marcus said. I am a certified cargo pilot with experience in emergency navigation. And my companion is a former Valkyrie military navigation strategist. We might be able to help. The security officer shook his head. Look, I appreciate the offer, but the captain has the situation under control. We have train crew handling this, really. Because from what I heard on the intercom, your train crew has no idea why both navigation systems failed at once. How long before you admit you need help? The smaller security officer glanced at his companion. Stevens, maybe we should at least ask the captain. What harm could it do? Before Stevens could respond, the ship lurched again, harder this time. The artificial gravity cut out completely for 3 seconds before slamming back on. People throughout the ship screamed. Somewhere in economy class, Marcus heard the crash of luggage falling from overhead compartments. Stevens grabbed his communicator. Bridge, this is security checkpoint Alpha. We have 2 passengers here claiming they have navigation experience. One is former Valkyrie military. Should I send them up? The response came quickly, Captain Rivera's voice tight with stress. Valkyrie military navigation? Send them up immediately. The bridge was smaller than Marcus expected, packed with monitors and control stations. Captain Rivera stood at the center, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and the kind of weathered face that came from decades in space. Around her, crew members worked frantically at their stations, voices overlapping as they called out readings and tried various solutions. I am Captain Elena Rivera, she said, turning to face them. Which one of you has military navigation experience? I am Shirak, formerly of the Valkyrie Strategic Fleet. I design navigation protocols for wartime operations. Rivera's eyes widened slightly. Then maybe you can explain what the hell is happening to my ship. Both navigation systems are locked. We cannot access manual controls. Every override command we input gets rejected by the computer core. It is like someone went into the deepest levels of the system code and changed everything. Shirak moved to the nearest navigation console, his 4 arms working across multiple interfaces simultaneously. His compound eyes scanned screens of data that scrolled past faster than Marcus could follow. This is deliberate, Shirak said, after a moment. Someone has rewritten your core navigation algorithms. Your ship believes it is following proper commands, but the actual trajectory has been altered. You're not heading for your scheduled destination. Where are we heading? Rivera asked, her voice deadly calm. Shirak's mandibles went rigid. The Krell asteroid field, one of the densest debris regions in this sector. When we drop out of faster-than-light travel, we will emerge directly in the center of it. At our current speed, we will have approximately 40 seconds before impact with multiple large asteroids. The bridge went silent except for the sound of the failing navigation systems. Marcus felt ice in his stomach. Can we change course before we drop out? Not through normal channels, Chirac said. The navigation lock is too sophisticated. We would need to physically access the computer core and manually rewrite the base programming. But that would require someone who understands both Valkyrie military coding architecture and human civilian navigation systems. Rivera looked between Chirac and Marcus. Can you two do it? Chirac and Marcus exchanged glances. Maybe, Marcus said. If Chirac can guide me through the Valkyrie protocols, and I can interface them with human systems. But we would need complete access to the computer core, and we would need to work fast. How fast? Rivera asked. We have 1 hour and 47 minutes until we drop out of faster-than-light travel, Chirac said. We would need at least 90 minutes to safely rewrite the core programming, test it, and implement the changes. Rivera's jaw clenched. Then you better get started. Full access is granted. Take whoever you need from my crew. Just save my ship. Marcus and Chirac ran toward the computer core access shaft. Behind them, Captain Rivera was already issuing orders, preparing the ship for emergency maneuvers if they succeeded, and preparing for the worst if they failed, the bridge. Between worlds, the computer core was located in the deepest section of the ship, surrounded by cooling systems and redundant power supplies. Marcus and Chirac descended through 3 levels of access corridors, accompanied by the ship's chief engineer, a nervous Andronian named Velthar. The engineer kept glancing at Chirac with obvious suspicion, but he said nothing as they moved through the cramped passages. The core chamber itself was a circular room dominated by crystalline data, storage units that pulsed with soft blue light. Dozens of input terminals ringed the walls, their screens displaying endless streams of code that controlled every aspect of the ship's operations. Marcus had worked with ship computers before, but never anything this complex. This was the brain of a luxury passenger liner, managing life support for 3,000 people, navigation across vast distances, and hundreds of automated systems simultaneously. Chirac moved immediately to the primary navigation terminal, his forearms working across the interface with practiced efficiency. Velthar, I need you to pull up the base navigation architecture. Marcus, you will need to access the human standard. Override protocols from that station. He gestured with his secondary right arm toward a terminal on the opposite side of the room. Marcus sat down and began navigating through layers of system menus. His hands moved quickly, muscle memory from years of emergency repairs taking over. I have got the override menu open, but it is asking for command authorization codes I do not have. Captain Rivera to computer core. The intercom crackled to life. I am transmitting my command codes now. You have full system access. A moment later, Marcus's screen flashed green. He was in. Okay, I can see the navigation subroutines. There are thousands of them? Where do I even start? Chirac's compound eyes never left his own screen. The sabotage will be in the core trajectory calculations, specifically the faster-than-light exit coordinates. Look for any recent modifications to files labeled with prefix UNTC. Marcus scrolled through endless lines of code. Most of it made no sense to him, strings of numbers and symbols that represented complex mathematical equations. Then he saw it. A file marked NTC 7749, last modified 2 days ago during the ship's maintenance cycle at Terminus Station. I found something. File NT C7749, modified 43 hours ago. Open it, Chirac commanded. Show me the coordinate string. Marcus pulled up the file. Even he could see that something was wrong. The coordinate values were completely inconsistent with the rest of the navigation data. These numbers look random. They do not match any of the surrounding code patterns. Chirac was silent for a moment, his mandibles clicking softly as he processed information. They are not random. Those are coordinates for the center of the Krell asteroid field, translated into Velkari military notation. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They understood both human and Velkari navigation systems well enough to hide their sabotage in plain sight. Velther spoke up for the first time, his voice shaking. But why? Why would anyone want to destroy a civilian passenger ship? We can worry about why later, Marcus said. Right now, we need to fix this. Iraq, what do I do? You cannot simply delete the corrupted file. The navigation system will detect the missing data and automatically shut down as a safety measure. We need to replace it with correct coordinates while simultaneously convincing the system that nothing has changed. Marcus felt sweat beading on his forehead. How do we do that? I am going to write a new coordinate string based on our original flight plan. You will need to integrate it into the human navigation framework while I simultaneously update the Velkari protocols. We must input the changes at exactly the same moment, or the system will reject one or both modifications. You want us to rewrite critical navigation code while traveling faster than light, and input it simultaneously across two different system architectures. Marcus stared at Chirac. That is insane. Yes, it is also our only option. Chirac's forearms moved across his terminal, pulling up multiple screens of data. I am calculating the correct coordinates now. Velther, I need you to monitor system integrity. If you see any sign that the changes are causing cascade failures, alert us immediately. For the next hour, Marcus worked more intensely than he ever had in his life. Chirac walked him through the intricacies of Velkari navigation coding, explaining how their mathematical models differed from human approaches. The Velkari used multidimensional spatial mapping that accounted for gravitational variance in ways human systems simply ignored. It was elegant and incredibly complex. Your people's navigation is more sophisticated than ours, Marcus said as he carefully typed in another line of code. Different, not superior, Chirac replied. Human systems prioritize efficiency and speed of calculation. Velkari systems prioritize accuracy and safety margins. Both approaches have merit. Ideally, one would combine the strengths of each. Marcus paused, an idea forming. Could we actually do that? Combine them? What do you mean? Well, we are already integrating both systems to fix this sabotage. What if we did not just replace the corrupted code, but actually merge the best elements of both navigation approaches? Use human efficiency for normal operations and Velkari safety protocols for emergency situations. Chirac's mandibles spread in what Marcus now recognized as surprise. That would require significantly more work. We have less than 40 minutes remaining. But if it works, it would make the ship safer, not just fixing the current problem, but preventing future ones. Velther looked up from his monitoring station. That is a brilliant idea, but incredibly risky. If the integration fails, we could make things worse. Marcus looked at Chirac. Can we do it? The old Velkari studied Marcus for a long moment. Then his compound eyes seemed to brighten. Yes, I believe we can. But we will need to work faster than either of us has ever worked before. They dove back into the code with renewed purpose. Marcus handled the human system integration while Chirac restructured the Velkari protocols. They called out coordinates and verification checks to each other, their voices falling into a rhythm that felt almost musical. Velther monitored system stability, occasionally calling out warnings when their changes pushed too hard against the existing architecture. Sarah appeared in the doorway. Breathing hard, Captain Rivera sent me to help. I know basic programming, and I can run calculations. Perfect timing, Marcus said. I need you to verify these coordinate transformations. Make sure the mathematical conversions between Velkari and human notation are accurate. Sarah sat at a third terminal and began working through the equations. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, double-checking every calculation Marcus and Chirac fed to her. The intercom crackled. Computer core, this is the bridge. We have 15 minutes until we drop out of faster-than-light travel. Status report. Shirak responded without looking up from his screen. We are implementing the final integration protocols now. The new navigation system will be ready with approximately 3 minutes to spare. 3 minutes is not much margin for error. Captain Rivera's voice was tight. It will have to be enough. The last 10 minutes felt like hours. Marcus's hands shook as he typed in the final command strings. Beside him, Shirak worked with absolute focus, his forearms moving in perfect coordination. Sarah called out confirmation after confirmation, verifying each piece of the puzzle. Final integration sequence ready, Shirak announced. Marcus, on my mark. We input simultaneously. 3, 2, 1, mark. They both hit the execute commands at the same instant. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then every screen and computer core flashed red. System rejection, Velther shouted. The core is not accepting the new protocols. Marcus's heart sank. They have failed. In minutes, the ship would drop out of faster-than-light travel directly into an asteroid field, and 3,000 people would die. Then Shirak did something unexpected. He began speaking in his native Velkari language, his mandibles clicking in complex patterns while his arms moved across the keyboard in a blur of motion. Marcus could not understand the words, but he recognized the tone. It was like Jirak was reasoning with the computer, explaining why it should accept the changes. What is he doing? Sarah whispered. Velkari military computers were designed to interface with organic operators, Velther said quietly. They respond to verbal commands combined with physical input. He is using old military protocols to condense the system. The red screens flickered. Then, one by one, they began turning green. The computer core hummed with new energy as the integrated navigation system came online. Warning sirens stopped. The grinding sound of stressed engines smoothed out. Integration successful, Velther announced, his voice filled with disbelief. The new system is operational. Navigation control has been restored. Marcus slumped in his chair, exhausted. Did we just do what I think we did? We created the first hybrid Velcheri human navigation system, Shirak said. His voice carried a note of wonder. This should not have been possible. Bridge to computer core. Captain Rivera's voice sounded equally amazed. I have full navigation control. We are adjusting course now. All systems are responding perfectly. Better than perfectly, actually. The navigation accuracy has improved by 40%. The ship shuddered slightly as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the computer core's small viewport, Marcus could see the Krell asteroid field in the distance, a deadly cloud of tumbling rock and ice. But they were well clear of it, on a safe trajectory that would take them to their destination. Sarah started laughing, the sound slightly hysterical with relief. We are alive. We actually survived. Marcus stood and walked over to Jirak. Without thinking, he embraced the old Velkari. It was awkward, trying to hug someone with 4 arms and an exoskeleton, but Jirak carefully wrapped his primary arms around Marcus in return. Thank you, Marcus said quietly. I could not have done this without you. The gratitude is mutual. Your willingness to trust my knowledge, to combine our different approaches, that saved us all. Captain Rivera arrived in the computer core 20 minutes later, accompanied by her head of security and 2 officers Marcus did not recognize. Her expression was grim. We found the saboteur, she said without preamble. Passenger named Krentok, a Talaxian businessman. Security found modified access codes. In his personal terminal and communications with a group, calling themselves the Purity Coalition. Marcus remembered the silver-scaled Talaxian who had confronted him and Jirak earlier. The guy who was arguing with us before the emergency. The same. He has been transmitting reports on human-alien cooperation incidents for months. Apparently, your gesture of giving up your first-class seat to Jirak triggered something in him. He decided to make an example to show what happens when species mix too freely. Jirak's mandibles clicked sharply. He was willing to murder 3,000 innocent beings to make a political statement. Yes, and according to his communications, he is not alone. The Purity Coalition has members across multiple systems, all working to sabotage integration efforts. Rivera looked at Marcus and Jirac. What you two did today, combining your knowledge to save the ship, it is exactly what terrifies people like Krentok. You proved that cooperation between species is not just possible, but powerful. The story broke across galactic news networks within hours. Footage from Sarah's camera drone, which had been recording in the computer core, showed Marcus and Shirak working together in perfect synchronization. The image of a human cargo hauler and elderly. Valkyrie veteran saving thousands of lives through cooperation became instantly viral. Interview requests flooded in. News agencies wanted statements. Universities wanted to study their hybrid navigation system. Even the Galactic Federation Council reached out, requesting that Marcus and Jirak testify about what had happened. Marcus stood in his cramped economy seat, looking at his message tablet filled with notifications. It was overwhelming. He was just a freight hauler who had given up a comfortable seat. How had it led to all this? Jirak found him there, having navigated through the crowd of passengers who now wanted to shake his hand or take pictures with him. You are troubled, the old Valkyrie observed. I do not know what to do with all this attention. People are calling us heroes, but I just did what anyone should do. That is precisely why it matters. You did what anyone should do, but most would not. You saw someone struggling and helped without expecting anything in return. That simple act of kindness changed everything. Marcus looked at his friend, because that is what Yurak had become. What happens now? Now we continue forward. The Federation Council wants to create a new initiative, the Interspecies Navigation Safety Administration. They want us to lead it. Us? Jirak, I hold cargo. I am not qualified to lead anything. You have practical experience in real-world conditions. You understand that the best solutions come from combining different perspectives. And most importantly, you have the courage to trust others, even those your society once considered enemies. Jirak placed a gentle claw on Marcus's shoulder. Those qualities are more valuable than any formal credentials. 2 months later, Marcus stood in the Grand Hall of Federation headquarters on Unity Station. The room was filled with delegates from dozens of species, all gathered for the official launch of the Interspecies Navigation Safety Administration. Beside him, Jirak wore formal robes that honored his military service. On Marcus's other side stood Sarah, who had accepted a position as their chief of research and development. The hybrid navigation system they had created was now being installed in ships across the galaxy. Accident rates had dropped by 60% in the sectors where it was operational. More importantly, the project had brought together engineers from multiple species, all working toward a common goal. Marcus looked out at the crowd and saw hope. He saw a young human technician laughing with a Valkyrie programmer. He saw a Talaxian pilot comparing notes with an Andronian navigator. He saw the future taking shape, built on cooperation and mutual respect. Captain Rivera approached them, smiling. The Stellar Empress has been refitted with your system. I wanted to personally invite you both on our next voyage. First-class accommodations for both of you. Marcus glanced at Shirak and grinned. Thank you, Captain, but I think we will take economy. That is where we do our best work. 6 months later, Marcus received a message from his sister on Earth. She had seen the news coverage, watched the interviews, followed the progress of the Interspecies Navigation Safety Administration. Her message was simple. Grandfather would be proud. Marcus thought about his grandfather's words, about how civilizations should treat their veterans and their vulnerable. He thought about a simple decision to give up a comfortable seat, and how that one small act had rippled outward to change thousands of lives. He was sitting in his new office on Unity Station, reviewing applications from young engineers who wanted to join their initiative. Humans, Valkyrie, Talaxians, Androrians, and dozens of other species, all eager to work together. The walls between species were not gone, but they were crumbling. One partnership at a time, one shared project at a time, one act of kindness at a time. Girac entered the office, carrying 2 cups of that expensive Centaurian whiskey they had shared on their first meeting. I thought we should toast our success. Marcus accepted the cup. What are we toasting? To the future, to bridges built between worlds, and to the human merchant who saw an old soldier struggling and decided to help. They drank together, looking out at Unity Station's massive viewports. Ships of every design came and went, representatives of countless civilizations moving through space safely, guided by navigation systems that proved cooperation was not just noble, but practical. Marcus thought about Krentok, sitting in prison somewhere, still believing that separation was strength. He hoped someday that Talaxian would understand that true strength came from connection, from combining different perspectives, from having the courage to extend a hand across the divide. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges. There would always be those who feared change, who saw cooperation as weakness. But there would also be people like Sarah, like Captain Rivera, like the hundreds of engineers now working together across species lines. And it had all started with a simple choice on a crowded passenger ship. A choice to show kindness to someone who looked different, who had once been considered an enemy, who was struggling. Marcus raised his cup once more. To small acts of kindness that change everything. Girac clicked his mandibles in agreement. And to the friendships that grow from them. Outside their window, the galaxy turned, full of infinite possibilities and endless opportunities for those brave enough to reach across the darkness and find connection in the light.